Alright, I did my informative on the evolution of music in the 20th century. What played the music? In the early 1900s, the only medium that music could go through was radio. The problems with that are you couldn't listen to everything that you wanted to when you wanted to. You had to tune into a station at a certain time in order to get what you wanted when you wanted. And you couldn't buy the individual songs that you can today. What played the music? Vinyl. That's the big records. The problem with those is they were big, bulky. They could only be used on record players. And they weren't portable in vehicles, so you could take it on the go. Also, cassettes and CDs towards the end of the 1990s. There's a cassette and there's a CD. And here's a CD. Problems with that, you had to buy the whole album in order to get what you wanted from the artist. So you couldn't buy the individual songs. And in the pop music from the 1900s has changed. And the pop music from the 1920s was jazz, with people like Louis Armstrong, and there's one of his albums, and he's known for St. Louis blues. From the 1930s, you had people like Frank Sinatra that had hits like All or Nothing at All. The 1940s brought the birth of country music. The country became the pop of the 1940s with people like Hank Williams. And he had hits like White Power. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. The 1950s brought country rock to the mainstream with people like Elvis Presley. And he had hits like Blue Suede Shoes. And Johnny Cash had hits like Ring of Fire.
I went down.
The 1960s brought That's unfortunate. It brought the British invasion, and with that, the Beatles and Beatlemania. And they had hits like Come Together, Drive My Car, and Revolution, which was going to be on speakers, but it isn't. The 1960s also brought the Rolling Stones with the British invasion, and they had hits like Paint It Black and Sympathy for the Devil.
Pleased to meet
And
you.
I don't know whether I should try this or not, but I'm going to. Nothing.
Is your computer volume on?
Well, that could be it. Well, The Who had hits like My Generation. 1970s. The 1970s brought disco to the mainstream, and in the 1970s, pop music went through vigorous genre additions, such as disco. One of the bands that had a disco hit was Blondie, and they had Heart of Glass. Okay. Another band that had a disco hit was the Bee Gees, and they had Stayin' Alive. 1970s, pop rock brought AC/DC to the mainstream with hits like Dirty Deed, Done Dirt Cheap, and TNT. They also brought Pink Floyd to the mainstream with Another Brick in the Wall.
Rocking out now.
that was a way for Pink Floyd to express their feelings on the British education system. All right. 1970s pop rock also brought punk rock to the mainstream with bands like The Clash. They had hits like White Riot and London Calling. Another punk band was the Ramones, and they had hits like Blitzkrieg Bop, which was their view on Nazi Germany in World War II. 1970s country. Country started to fade away from the mainstream, and this was due to, well, just pop music ever changing. But it was still popular with a large demographic. People, popular country singers from the 1970s include Willie Nelson, and he had hits like On the Road Again. 1980s pop and dance. Pop music gained its own genre of music, and it was based on the disco era music. One person being Michael Jackson, and he had hits like Billie Jean. Another artist from the 80s pop music was Madonna, and she had hits like a Prayer. 1980s rock. 1980s rock was split up into a lot of different subgenres throughout the decade. One of them being glam. Glam is where you get the big hair and the leather clothes and everything that everybody used to wear. And that's people like Bon Jovi, and they had hits like Living on a Prayer. Also Guns N' Roses, and they had hits like Welcome to the Jungle. 1980s rock also was split up into alternative, and from those alternative bands you get REM, and they had hits like It's the End of the World as We Know It, and Husker Du. 1980s rock also brought soft rock to the mainstream with artists like Tom Petty and hits like I Won't Back Down, and Bruce Springsteen with Born in the USA. R&B was also brought to the mainstream in the 80s with people like Whitney Houston, and she had hits like I Just Want to Dance with Somebody, and 1980s hip hop brought Run DMC to 1990s brought more subgenres of music, and they began to grow in popularity, such as alternative music with the Goo Goo Dolls and Third Eye Blind. It also brought, the early 1990s brought grunge to the mainstream with bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. It also brought a reemergence of punk rock music to the mainstream with bands like Green Day and their hit Basket Case, and The Offspring with Pretty Fly for a White Guy. Rocked the pop culture of the 90s. Okay. The mid-90s gave birth to nu metal. Nu metal was a mashup between rap and metal, and from that you get Linkin Park and In the End, and Limp Bizkit with Fake. So, what changed? From the 20s to the 60s, the songs gained lyrics that promoted a general cause. From the 60s to the 80s, the songs gained lyrics that people used as a medium to get out their own personal beliefs. And from the 80s to the 90s, the songs strayed away from the lyrical content and focused more on the dance and the music part of the song. And that's my informative on the evolution of music in the 20th century.